Hello and welcome to the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. Today we're talking about the power of getting 360 feedback. Before I start on the coaching and the training teaching on that, I want to start with this story. I read in Marshall Goldsmith's book, it was either what got you here won't get you there or Triggered. And in that book, he was talking about uh, a leader that had received constructive feedback on how he was performing. And this leader didn't take it seriously. They didn't really care what the colleagues were saying about things, areas that they could improve in. He didn't really take to heart as constructive feedback areas to improve. Rather, he would say, I know why. I know why, they would say that. Or the reason why I do that is because, and he would always try to justify his actions. And this was until he received feedback from his family, specifically his children. And his children gave feedback. And one of the things that they said is, we would never want to be like him. So whether he was because he was a workaholic and he was just pushing everybody to get the results, but his children actually said, I would not want to be like my dad. And that really hit home. That hit him like a ton of bricks. And all of a sudden he was open to receiving feedback. He was open to listening to Marshall Goldsmith, his coach. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, whether that's YouTube or Apple, Google, Spotify, or Amazon. We are on all those platforms. And please leave us a review. This is what leaving reviews does. It helps us know that our content adds value to you, but it also lets other people who are leaders such as you looking for insights, looking for lessons, looking to improve their leadership effectiveness. When you let them know, hey, listen, you need to listen to the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. We get immense value from this. They're more likely to want to tune in, to listen, and to grow. So in advance, I'd like to thank you both for subscribing to the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast and for leaving a review. And of course, for sharing it with other leaders in your network. It means so much to us. Now, onward to today's topic, the power of getting 360 leadership feedback. So 360 leadership feedback is feedback you get on your leadership effectiveness from both work relationships, such as direct managers, direct reports, peers that you work with, even clients that you work with, as well as family relationships, a spouse and children and siblings and parents and whoever else knows you. And this is the criteria: that they know you well, that they know your work well, and they know your leadership well enough to give honest, critical, and useful feedback that you can review and take action to improve your leadership effectiveness. So 360 leadership feedback is getting feedback from, and I love the fact that it's called 360 leadership feedback, because I am all about 360 leadership. Now, don't confuse the two. I often talk about the fact that you are a holistic person, that both the personal and the professional come together to make up who you are. That you cannot hide the personal when you go out into a work context, nor, and just take your very professional foot forward, nor put away your professional side when you get in a private context. You are who you are, and you're bound to show up as you wherever you are. And so it is important for you to get feedback in all those areas of life. But 360 in this respect is really every single person from every single sphere of influence. I recently had my 360 done. Well, first of all, I am sure my blood pressure went up a notch. I don't know why, but I got nervous to receive this feedback. And the entire time I'm going through my 360 comments on my strengths, weaknesses, areas of improvement, the statements on the leadership competencies I'm supposed to display, and people's view on how I do in those areas, I was holding my breath. Now, I didn't have a doubt that I am a strong leader, that I'm empathetic, that I care, that I'm good at what I do, that I but somehow I got really nervous about it. But suffice to say, I survived it. I actually did it for my school and I got an A. So thank you to everybody who actually gave me feedback for my 360. But also, it gave me such valuable insights into the areas that I may not necessarily be aware of as a leader, or maybe I am, but may not be sure as to the extent in which those areas I think I'm either strong at or weak at, areas that I need to improve on, or areas I need to leverage. I got a clear and I believe honest view of where I'm doing great and I should continue, where I need help or I'll self sabotage, and how I can really take advantage of my personality, my skill sets, my experience, the way I connect with others for where I'd like to go to next in my career. I am a business leader, but even business is a career for me. So 360 leadership feedback is so valuable for you to get feedback from all those that are under your leadership influence, who can speak to the strength, the weaknesses, and areas that you can, areas of opportunity that you can leverage to really position yourself well in character, competence, and of course, connection with others. Because this is it. And I want to get into the details of the 360 Leadership Podcast in a minute. We usually solicit 360 Leadership Podcast either in a questionnaire or sometimes it's a live interview that somebody does for you. You don't do it yourself, right? Because you want to give people the freedom to be able to speak honestly about what they're hearing, what they're seeing. So we give people that distance by allowing somebody else to take out the questionnaire and possibly have the responses being collected by someone else or somebody else interviewing the respondents to your 360 leadership feedback. When we get it, the whole point of getting it is that leadership is about influence. And John Maxwell said that. It wasn't I. He said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And influence is really your ability to incite, to affect, to cause a certain response in others. So let's say the ability of your attitude and your behaviors, your actions, your words to influence others' attitudes and behaviors and action and words. So you're either effective and highly effective as a leader, which means that your attitude, your behaviors, your actions, your words really have a great impact on those under your leadership influence. Whether that's positive or negative, that's a whole other thing. Or you're not so effective in that what you put out, who you are, how you show up, what you say, what you stand for, how you connect with others does not influence them that much. They're not about to change their mindsets. They're not about to change their attitudes. They're not about to change their behaviors, their actions, their allegiance because of you. Now, as a leader, understanding that leadership is influence, you always want to hear from those you seek to influence how you're doing as a leader. Because otherwise, what are you doing? Right? They have to let you know how you are doing. There's a place for self-assessment. We're going to talk about that today. But on the whole, if you want to know how well you're doing as a leader, if you want to grow as a leader, grow your leadership effectiveness, at some point, you're going to have to do a 360 leadership feedback. You need to do a 360 leadership assessment of how well you're doing in the areas that matter to your leadership. So that is the first reason. You have the power to find out from those that are under your leadership influence whether you're doing great as a leader and they're aligned with you and they're ready to go anywhere with you. They are behind you. They are going to lead the charge with you. Or people are like, Modesta who? Like, she can say what she wants. She can jump up and down. She can have whatever, but nah, I don't take her seriously. Oops. And there you are. looking to influence. And they say, I don't really take it serious. No, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, we go to meetings and she makes a whole thing and puts up presentation, whatever. But honestly, I just go back and just do my job. Like, she's here today, gone tomorrow. Don't pay her no mind. If these are the people you're meant to influence and help them get somewhere, this would be a problem. And so getting feedback from those under your charge or those that are doing life with you, everyone in every sphere, 360, as I mentioned them before, that are affected, that are influenced by your leadership is so key, so powerful, such a gift. Otherwise, you will continue the way you're doing, kind of hoping, sort of thinking, maybe disillusioned that you're doing the right thing and you are a very strong and powerful and effective and impactful and transformative leader. Or you actually get the feedback to either validate that, yeah, you're doing great, please do more, or great in this area, you can improve here, or maybe delegate here. Or, oh my goodness, we're so grateful that you asked, because this leader, no, I don't consider them my leader. I would not follow them. I don't think they're a person of character. I don't think they know what they're doing. They're not a person of competence. And we simply, there's no relatability. Like, we don't even connect. So yeah, thanks for asking. It's about time somebody actually asked. No, this is not a leader. This is not a person I would consider to be a leader. This is not a person I would put anything down for to support. I don't believe in anything they say or do, and I would not want to be associated with them. Then we have a problem. Then there are things to do. So whatever the scenario may be, whatever the responses is, say thank you. Say thank you, because then at least now you know, rather than just going out the way you always had been. Now you know the areas that you're doing well at, and you can improve them, or you can really lean on those strengths. Or you know areas where you're not doing so great at. And these are areas maybe that are really critical for what you'd like to achieve as a leader with those that you seek to influence, whether that you're working with them directly, whether they're in the industry, whether they're in your family or the community that surrounds you. 360 leadership feedback, it is so key. So first thing is that you actually get to hear from those that are under your leadership influence. Isn't that a gift? The second thing is, you can say, I know myself, which is great. Self-awareness is so important. But the second thing is to complement your self-assessment. This is the power of 360 leadership feedback. There is your view. Imagine it is a circle. In that circle is everything you think of yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, areas that that you can really leverage, the opportunities, areas for you to grow, areas that, you need to look out for that can sabotage you. But do you know that we are all biased, all of us without exception? What I see is made up of my experiences. It's made up of my upbringing. I have cognitive biases. I have blind spots about myself. Research shows that we believe better about ourselves, actually 5 times better than we really are. We rate ourselves much higher in so many areas than we really are, because we would like to believe we are good people. We are competent professionals. We are leaders that have connection and influence. And often the reality is we are not, at least not as highly rated, highly reviewed as we would like to believe. And so it comes as a compliment, as a welcome compliment to how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you. And it gives you an opportunity then to say, oh, wow, okay, so the strengths of this is validated. Or to say, oh my goodness, this is almost not even speaking about me. Who is this talking about? I did not realize that this is how I show up. Well, it is key for you to know. Now you know this is how you show up, and it matters. And so there are areas to make adjustments. So that's the second reason why you would do a 360 leadership podcast, is to align my circle of self assessment and the circle of 360 feedback and see where it overlaps. The areas in which these two circles overlap, I'm trying to do my circles here and they're overlapping. This little area here where they overlap, you're like, oh, great, I'm aligned. But in the areas where you see yourself one way, and those under your leadership influence, those that you want to influence to get somewhere, they see you in a completely different way. You have a choice. Either act like you did not see what you saw, which you cannot really unsee, and just continue the way you've always done, make excuses for why they think that way, and that is not the truth about you, because you have some truth about you that may not necessarily be true, that may not necessarily be fact. Or you take that feedback. I am this way, and I know I am this way, but it seems that I am showing up in another way. That is not how I actually want to show up to people. I am surprised that this is how I show up. So what am I going to do? I am going to find out what it takes then to align my self-perception with the perception others have of me, so that I can do the work to get these circles closer and closer together. Carla Harris said, perception is the co-pilot to reality. If people perceive you a certain way, even when you could say, I swear I am not that way. If people perceive you a certain way, that to them is the reality of how you are. This is why people spend money on PR and personal branding and image creation. And I'm thinking of the US and in politics, they're really looking to create a certain image of a candidate. Why? Because they want to make sure that they're showing up in such a way that elicits trust and confidence in those that will be voting for them. And if there are any areas that don't do that, then they have to work on those areas. Otherwise, they will not get the votes. This is why there's investment in executive presence and executive coaching and executive personal branding. It matters. It matters. You could see yourself one way, but if those that your mental influence don't perceive you that way, they can give you a hard time. They could shut doors that you're meant to access, shut doors to their hearts and their minds. They won't listen to you. They won't pay you any mind. And even shut doors to opportunities, shut doors to resources, shut doors to networks, shut doors to levels that you would like to grow into, simply because they don't perceive you, fairly or unfairly, they don't perceive you to be as you perceive yourself. And so the second reason and the second power of 360 leadership feedback is that it helps complement how you see yourself with how others see you and make adjustments accordingly. The third reason, and I really like this, of getting 360 leadership feedback is that it gives you an opportunity to face fears. Like I told you, I was having a mini something like my heart was racing, and when I was going through my 360 leadership feedback, it was detailed, the feedback I solicited, right? And so now I'm reading what people have said about me, because it was an anonymous review. By the way, this is something I should mention. When you're soliciting 360 leadership feedback, use an anonymous method that people won't feel like this is going to come back and bite me if Modesta finds out it was me who gave this feedback. They should feel completely free to say whatever they feel like saying to you, knowing there will be no repercussions. So there is no indication. This is feedback from direct reports, because they're not going to say the harshest truth to their boss, okay? They want to keep their jobs. Or this is feedback from your kids. No, it's just going to be feedback all around. And you will hear in what they're saying on your strengths, weaknesses, areas to improve on, and how well you're doing in character, in connection, in competence, in the areas that are important. You're just going to get everybody's feedback. It's an opportunity to face the truth. Let's say you had imposter syndrome in some areas, that you just didn't feel that you had the competence. Like You're in it, but you're like, I am winging this thing. I just don't know. I'm probably looked at by everybody else and think I'm a fool. They think I should be the person for the job. And then all of a sudden you get this feedback. And there's an overwhelming number of people saying, this is a strength of yours. Like we would give them, let's say you're doing a rating. Let's say that we would give them an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 for that area. An area that you've been agonizing over as possibly an area not of your strength. Well, now you know. That's an area of strength. You don't need to worry about that anymore. You can lay that to rest. That's the strength you have. If that little pesky voice comes to you again and says, well, you're not really, just keep quiet. I know I am. And I have just received 360 leadership feedback saying that I am. So I got this. It's also an opportunity for you to discover other areas of strength that you didn't even know you had. All of a sudden, people are pointing out to things you're doing. Maybe to you, it's just a by the way thing. It's just a thing I've always done since I was a kid. And all of a sudden, this is something people latch onto. This is something people see and appreciate about you. And so now a world of possibilities is open to you. Oh my goodness, this is also an area I could start working on. I should really lean into this. Like I should bring this out more. I didn't realize that this thing really matters. I'll tell you, I would get questions about outfits or questions about makeup or questions about hair. And, that's not what I'm about. But hey, if that's something that seems, if people think that, God forbid, for those who are like really stylish out there, like, she thinks you're stylish, but let me just tell you, I get feedback. People say that I'm stylish. Okay. So if that is something to come, okay, then let me come out, in the best way that I can present myself, with my flair, with my, the looks that I like to have. That complements who I am well. That actually helps me package myself as a leader. Right? It may not have been the thing that I'm out to do. When I'm looking at working on my character, on my competence, the connection with people, I'm not looking at impressing people with how I dress. I know I need to dress well and I need to show up professionally, but it never occurs to me to really go over and above in my outfits. But if that makes a difference, great. So it may be something else for you that people are noticing that you hadn't really thought that that's something worth pointing out. But all of a sudden now, well, maybe you're going to be more mindful of it. You're going to be more intentional about putting that as an area that complements you well as a leader. If you get feedback that, listen, there's an area, if you don't work on it, you're heading into a ditch. Well, thank God you got feedback before you headed into that ditch. So now you don't panic. You just say, God, I thank you that I got to find out before this got worse. Okay, then I'll do something about it. So you go and create a plan, and we're going to talk about that next, on what you need to do so that you can course correct, so that you can veer off, wherever you were off track, right? And veer back on track. If, let's say, you get feedback, look, you're preoccupied with this, but we're thinking with your seniority, this isn't even something for you to be doing. That's, somebody else could handle that. We think that stresses you out. We think that prevents you from really being healthy and coming out the best that you can because you're taking that on as well. Well, thank goodness for that feedback, because now you can delegate this rather than hanging on to it and doing things that really don't serve you, that will not, if you were to stop doing them, would not diminish your value add as a leader. Well, now and you can take that off your plate. Leaders, you need to take things off your plate. You would welcome the opportunity to take things off your plate. 360 leadership feedback will give you that feedback. Will let you know the things that you don't need to preoccupy yourself with, so you can focus on those that you do. So this is how I would go about when I'm facing the truth of what I'm being told. This is how I would go about adjusting the areas that I need to adjust for me to thrive, for me to be more effective as a 360 leader. Number one is ask yourself, is this for me to do? Whatever feedback you received in that area, is this for me to do? There's certain things you cannot delegate. You cannot delegate vision. You cannot delegate, setting strategy. You cannot delegate team building. You cannot delegate holding yourself and others accountable. That is going to be on you. But maybe there are things you can delegate. So you're going to ask yourself, number one, is it for me to do? If it is for you to do, okay, then do I have the interest and the ability to do it? If I don't, how can I build that? Because clearly I can't delegate this. This is squarely on my shoulders. This is for me to do. Do I have the bandwidth? Number three, do I have the bandwidth to do it? If you don't, you need to move things around because this is for you to do. For those things that only you can do and only you must do, you're going to then ask yourself, do I have the interest and the ability? If not, build it, because you cannot delegate this. Do I have the bandwidth? Do I have the time? Do I have the energy? Do I have the finances, whatever other resources you need to do it? If you don't, you need to find them, because this is a critical area that only you can do. And compromising in this area is going to compromise your leadership effectiveness. But if you ask yourself, is this for me to do? And no, you don't even have to go through question 2 and 3. Just drop it. Whether you're going to delete it, you're going to delegate it, you're going to delay it, defer it, whatever it is you're going to do, remove it, because it's dragging you down, it's weighing you down, it's adding to your plate, when really as a leader, you need to get lean, remove things you don't need to have so that you can focus on what is really core for you to do. My advice always is play at your strengths. Gravitate towards things that you are strong at doing. I'm not saying don't be open to challenges. I'm not saying don't get out of your comfort zone. Oh, that's the last thing I would say. I am all about getting out of your comfort zone and growing. But what I am saying to you is lean on your strengths. The reason why you have those strengths is you're wired that way. You are created by God that way. Secondly, you've probably done it so many times that you're a master at it right now. You have so much experience in it. You've honed your skills in it. These are your strengths. So gravitate towards your strengths. And there's something one of my mentors say, Oba Femi Banibe. Femi, shout out to you. He told me, staff your weaknesses. When I started getting overwhelmed with leadership responsibilities, he said, Modesta, you cannot do everything. The areas in which you're not strong at, you're not going to go get a course for every single thing. You're not going to try to build up. Let's say there's an area and I score a 1 in that area. I am not going to get it to a 10. Okay? If I score a 1 and I'm already in leadership. So staff your weaknesses. Get other people, get staff for the areas in which you're not strong at. You may still know, I would actually urge you to know your business, to know your department, to know your work. Technically, know your work well, know your market, know your ideal customer profile, know your stuff, even though you're not the person doing the stuff. That's key. So play at your strengths, staff your weaknesses, safeguard your health. This is key. If you're engaged in things and you're thinking, I am running on fumes, I don't have the strength, I don't have the withal, this is costing me to do this. It is not worth it. There is no job, there is no business. Let me tell you this, not even your family is going to be worth you risking your health. And so you're going to look at, okay, what needs to be done here? Because it's literally costing my life to be able to show up for them. It should not have to cost your life. Jesus died for us. The rest of us do not have to be dying for other people, but certainly not at work. Okay? And then empower others to take over. This is my advice. You're going to play at your strengths. Of course, it doesn't mean that you don't get out of your comfort zone. Stretch yourself. You're going to staff your weaknesses. You're going to make sure that you safeguard your health. And then you're going to empower others to take over. You won't be in leadership forever. Start leadership with that in mind. I won't be here forever. I'm not even interested in being here forever. I would like to groom other people to be able to come in, learn what I'm doing, do it even better, do it in their own style. As long as they achieve the results, as long as we get the outcomes we're looking for, I'd like to make myself irrelevant as soon as possible so that I can move on to bigger and greater things. So have that mindset as a leader from the onset that I want to empower others to take over so that you can, listen to this, empowering others, equipping others to take on greater responsibility, greater complexity, greater authority does not diminish you as a leader. That actually reinforces your leadership effectiveness. It reinforces your maturity. It reinforces your self awareness. It reinforces the fact that you care about the vision more than you care about your own visuals, and that you are ready to bring others on board, appreciating I cannot do this on my own, no matter how good that I am. And you get them on board to help you. So do not carry everything on your own. Play at your strengths, staff your weaknesses so that you don't obsess about improving an area that is going to take all of you to try to improve. Safeguard your health, and then, of course, empower others to take over. Leadership, 360 leadership assessments also give you an opportunity to develop a 360 leadership development plan. It helps you develop yourself 360 in every area of your work and life. It helps you then clarify the desires of what you'd like to do in your career. It helps you consider your personality, your attitude, your intelligence, your competence, your experiences. It helps you integrate feedback, both from your self-assessment and 360 feedback from others. It helps you also consider the expectations of your work, the expectations of those that have placed you in that position. So in my case, expectations, let's say, of my board and clients, the expectations of my colleagues. It helps you consider the expectations of your direct reports. It helps you consider expectations of your industry. When you get this feedback, it gives you a template, it gives you a canvas on which to start developing a plan to improve yourself as a leader. Now I know myself well. I've heard from other people who've given me feedback. I understand better what is expected of me. I understand better where people think I'm doing well and where I'm not serving them so well. I am grateful that they've given me this feedback. Well, I would have just continued just the way that I'd been doing before. And now, having faced the truth, having seen that perception is a co-pilot of reality, I may perceive myself one way, but if they perceive me another, I need to align these two circles so that they merge, because leadership is influence. If I am unable to influence those that I need to work with, those that I'm doing life with, then I am not a leader. Leadership is not about being in a position. Leadership is not saying, I am the head of this family or I am the head of this organization. Leadership is how well others perceive you to be so. How well others would allow themselves to be influenced by you, to change their mind, to change their behavior, to change their actions, to change their attitudes, their appetites, because of what you have said, because of how you are, because of what you have done, because of how you connect and lead them. So what you're going to do, and this can be a bit of homework for you, right? As you're thinking about creating a 360 leadership feedback, and then asking yourself, okay, so then what do I do with it? Now I know. Okay, now I know. What do I do with it? Well, you create a development plan. That's the whole point. It's not just insight for insight's sake. It's not torturing yourself to hear other people what they think about you just so that you're tortured. Or it's not a feel-good exercise. Ooh, now I know I'm just as good as I thought. No, it's a means to an end. It is a tool that helps you then create another tool, the 360 Leadership Development Plan, to improve yourself. So you're going to ask yourself, what development goals do I need to set for myself now that I have this feedback? What resources do I need? Do I need coaching, mentorship, training, accountability partners? What do I need for me to be able to achieve these goals, to improve in the areas that I was told I could improve, even if they're strengths, and maybe you can improve them, maybe you can leverage it, maybe you can lean on them more. What activities will I do then? What do I actually need to do? What will I daily do, or maybe it's weekly do, to be able to improve, to move toward my goal? What timeline will I set for myself to start and to finish these activities? And what will be the critical success factors that actually indicate that I'm doing a good job, that I'm making progress toward the goals that I've set for myself? I want to, before I finish today's episode, to talk about another thing. And I'm thinking this is the most powerful thing that 360 leadership feedback does for you. It lets those under your leadership influence know that you acknowledge that you may not be fully aware of how you show up as a leader. It is an acknowledgement for you. Soliciting 360 leadership feedback is acknowledging that I may not be fully aware. And secondly, I am vulnerable enough to open myself up to hear from you how I am doing. It does not matter that I'm sitting on the uppermost leadership seat. It does not matter that this is my business. It does not matter that I got an award and it says I'm the best in the industry. I would like to hear from you, who is daily dealing with me, how I am doing by you. It also says that you're taking leadership seriously. You're taking the fact that you're influencing people daily, for the better or for the worse, and you want to do something about it. It is key that people know they're not stuck with you, not stuck with you how you are, that you're self-aware and you have the humility to be open to hearing hard truths about how you are, and that you're serious then about taking that feedback and doing something with it. It also gives them such a sense of relief, a sense of community. They will give you more grace. They will be more loyal to you. They will be more willing to defer to you and even overlook as you're going through this journey when you actually take action on the 360 leadership feedback. It's one thing to ask for feedback. It means nothing if you don't take action on the feedback you've received. So if you actually take action. So first of all, you're already winning by the people you influence by soliciting their feedback and making sure it's anonymous and saying that it is safe, there'll be no repercussions. I truly need to hear what you honestly think about how I'm doing and how I can improve. That in itself, not many leaders are willing to receive 360 leadership feedback. And so just asking for feedback shows, hey, I'm aware that I may not be aware of how I'm showing up. I am okay to be vulnerable enough to hear hard truths. I am serious about improving myself so I can show up better for you, so that I can lead you better. And then when you take action, that just seals the deal for them. They will give you greater grace. They will more likely defer to you and be loyal to you, because they're seeing that this is a person. Forget about your leadership title. This is a human being that is aware that they are a human being, that they have strengths and they have shadows. They have their bright side and they have dark sides. And they're willing, even as a leader, who are usually, in some cultures, you're supposed to look up to and praise and adore and defer to and never criticize, never really pretend we see anything of them. They're willing for us to be truthful about what we see, how we are faring under their leadership, and to take action. And when you do take action, if you can really recruit some of the people that you're working with as accountability partners, listen, I am doing this thing. For instance, I tend to interrupt people. Could you, because we're in meetings a lot together, Could you please note down the number of times I interrupt? Right? So this is possibly somebody who has given you feedback. You don't know which one of them it is, but still, it's somebody who is around you and you're saying, I've received feedback that I interrupt people, that I don't listen well. And so could you please note down, because I'm working on improving this area. Or it could be at home, and it could be just, I'm not present. I show up and I'm on the phone all the time. Or I will even schedule meetings at home when I should be with you. Please, and whatever it is that you set as a behavior change that they should track, enlist them as an accountability partner that can help you. And that really tells them, hey, look, they're serious and they want to hear me. They want me there to be giving them feedback as they're going along. And then go back. Don't just do a 360 leadership feedback and then go away. Set a periodic schedule in which you will go back and let them know, everybody that you would ask feedback from, let them know how you're doing in the areas that you got feedback as the most critical areas you need to work on. Keep letting them know how you're doing, and then go back and get yet another feedback. Let's say 6 months after you did the initial 360 leadership assessment. Go back and do another assessment. And since they've been doing life and they've been doing work with you, they can give you feedback in how you're doing, how you're improving. This gives you then a midpoint. Maybe you want to assess how you're doing within a year. A midpoint review, right? A mid-year review on how you're doing, so that you can pivot, you can, adjust, tweak a little bit in the areas you need to tweak, or, you're doing great and keep going. And then by the end of the period, come back, give them a report. How did you do? This is the feedback I received. This is the leadership development plan that I put in place. These are the actions I took. By this time, this is the feedback I got from you guys. And right now, this is where I am. Thank you so much for that feedback. I aim to improve even more if there are areas that you need to work on still, or I'm going to do this now. I've pivoted on this action rather than doing it alone. I've gotten a professional who helped me. It speaks volumes that you take leadership seriously. It's not about you being the center of attention, being the show, being the one that calls the shots, but you truly understand that it is about them and how they can show up in a space that is safe, how they can contribute their whole selves to what you're doing together, how they can be equipped and empowered to contribute meaningfully, effectively, how they can drive results and outcomes, and that you're going to work on yourself to create an enabling environment for them to be able to do that. Nothing like it. 360 leadership feedback is so powerful. I encourage absolutely every leader, you might have a couple of palpitations like I did, but I encourage every single leader to incorporate getting 360 leadership assessments at the beginning of the year, doing a mid-year review, and going back at the end of the year to get their feedback and to report back on how you've done, because you were serious about not just getting feedback, but taking the actions in the areas that matter most to them, not in the areas you think are important to you. No, in the areas that those under your leadership influence that are most important to them. You worked on those areas and you improved those areas. This makes all the difference. Otherwise, who are you leading then? If you're doing your own thing, your own way, who are you speaking to? Who are you leading? You're certainly not hearing from them, who could give you feedback on how you're doing. You believe you've got this? You're doing perfectly? Every single follower is different. Every single situation, even if it's familiar to you, is different. Every single follower and you can be different in different situations. No matter how long you've been leading, no matter how long you've been leading the people you are leading, do not assume you know them. Do not assume you know yourself well enough. Do not assume you know the situation well enough to just do it whatsoever you please. Leader, humble yourself. Solicit 360 leadership feedback. And when you get it, take action and let the people who invested, who are themselves vulnerable to give you feedback, let them know the actions you've taken and what it has led to. If you've enjoyed this Modesta Mega 360 Leadership podcast, I'm going to ask you again, subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Amazon, and leave a review. Let people know, for instance, if you thought, oh, wait a second, this is an amazing session on getting 360 leadership feedback. I need to let people know about this. Well, please leave a review on this episode, leave a review about the podcast in general. And if you'd like to send us a note, send us an email, maybe write something longer about how the Modesta Mega 360 Leadership podcast has impacted you, please write to us on operations@modestamahiga.com, and we'll make sure to read out your review, read out your email. If you've sent a voice note or you've sent a little clip, a video clip, we'll make sure to share that in coming episodes. If you would like to work with me one-on-one on improving your leadership effectiveness, I have the Global Executive Coaching Program. It's a 9-month program where you get to work with me one-on-one. It includes getting 360 leadership feedback from those under your leadership influence and creating a tailored development plan to help you grow in the areas that you receive feedback as critical to your leadership success. I will coach you through helping you, whether it is in changing mindsets, attitudes, behaviors, actions, leadership, presence, and authority, and likability, even trust among those that you lead. So if this is something that you're interested in, write to us on operations@modestamahiga.com, and we will send out the brochure and we can have a conversation about getting you on board the Global Executive Coaching Program. So until next time, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. Bye for now.